In the quiet village of Tambwe, where goats bleated softly and drums echoed during evening fires, a woman named Nabira lived with her husband, Baba Dondo. Baba Dondo was one of the most respected elders in the village. His voice settled disputes, and his wisdom guided the young. He was kind, wise, and generous. But one thing was missing from his household: a child. For nearly 9 years, Nabira had prayed to the gods of fertility. She had bathed in sacred rivers, sat beneath the whispering fig tree, and chewed bitter roots offered by the village healer. But no baby ever came. Her heart was like a pot of boiling water, full of hope and pain at the same time. Nabira was not a wicked woman. She cooked for the poor, offered water to travelers, and respected the elders. But every time she passed women, laughing with babies on their backs, her heart cracked a little more. Baba Dondo, though older, never showed anger toward her. "It is the God's will," he would say softly, touching her cheek. "Even if we remain childless, you are enough for me." But Nabira knew he longed for a child to carry his name, to walk beside him with pride, to inherit his lands and honor. And that pressure was enough to plant something dangerous in her soul. One evening, as the sun bled into the sky, Baba Dondo returned from the forest with a surprise. His son from his late first wife, Ekon, had come home from the city. Ekon was tall, strong, and had the sharp jawline of his father. His voice was respectful, and his eyes held the curiosity of youth. "This is your son now, Nabira," Baba Dondo said joyfully. "He may not have grown in your womb, but he shall rest under your roof." Nabira smiled and welcomed Ekon warmly. But that night, as she watched him from the shadows, a strange whisper filled her heart. Only blood can continue blood. The voice of the old forest seer returned to her mind. She had once visited the forest seer, a woman with white eyes and a mouth full of broken teeth. The seer had told her, "You will carry a child, but the seed must be of his blood." Nabira had long thought it meant another ritual, perhaps more herbs or prayers. But now, seeing Ekon, something inside her shifted. Could the seer have meant, "Ekon?" She shook her head. No, I must not think that. That is evil." But the thought returned, again and again, like a bird that refused to stop singing. The days passed, and Nabira found herself watching Ekon more closely. When he fetched water from the stream, when he repaired the thatch roof, even when he laughed with the neighbors' children, her eyes followed him. She tried to bury her thoughts. She tried fasting, praying, and even isolating herself from him. But each time she looked at her husband's proud smile while watching Ekon, the thought grew louder. He is his blood. If I want to give my husband a child, maybe... Nabira covered her face and wept under the moonlight that night. She was a wife, a woman of respect, a servant of the gods. How could such thoughts grow inside her? But the heart, once touched by desperation, can twist even the purest intentions. And, somewhere in the darkness of that Tambwe night, the seed of sin was planted, quiet, dangerous, and growing. The days in Tambwe passed slowly, as if the sun itself walked barefoot across the sky. But inside Nabira's heart, time moved fast. Too fast. Since Ekon's return, her thoughts had grown heavier, filled with confusion and guilt. She was a mother in name, but her mind was no longer thinking like one. Ekon was kind to her. He always called her Mama Nabira. Even when she insisted he simply call her mother, he helped with chores, mended the fence, and even repaired the roof of the chicken hut when heavy rains came. Baba Dondo was proud. My son and my wife, my 2 blessings from the gods, he often declared with joy. But to Nabira, his words felt like fire on dry grass. One quiet evening, the family sat outside under the mango tree. The moon was rising slowly, and fireflies danced in the tall grass. Nabira served roasted cassava and groundnut soup. As they ate, Baba Dondo yawned, rubbed his full belly, and announced, "Old bones need sleep." He kissed Nabira on the forehead, smiled at Ekon, and retired to his hut. Only Ekon and Nabira remained under the moonlight. Silence sat between them. Ekon looked up and said softly, "Mama Nabira, are you well? You've seemed distant." Nabira hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I'm fine, my son. Just thinking about life." He nodded. "City life teaches you to always look ahead, but here in the village, I've learned to listen to silence." His words were innocent, but Nabira's heart skipped. She stood up slowly, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "Come," she said gently. "Walk with me." Together they walked along the narrow path that led to the old baobab tree. The moonlight draped the ground in silver, and the fireflies glowed like tiny spirits. The air smelled of wet earth and wild mint. They stopped near the tree. "I once came here to pray for a child," Nabira whispered. Ekon looked at her, unsure how to respond. "I did everything," she continued, her voice shaking slightly. "I begged the gods. I drank bitter herbs. I fasted until my bones ached. But still, nothing." Ekon's voice was gentle. "Maybe the gods have their own time, Mama." She turned to him. Her eyes glistened in the moonlight. "The forest seer once told me that I would bear a child, but only through my husband's blood." She stepped closer. "You are his blood, Ekon." The fireflies froze. The wind paused. Even the leaves on the trees seemed to hold their breath. Ekon blinked. "Mama Nabira, what are you saying?" "I don't want to lose Baba Dondo," she whispered. "He needs a child. If I don't give him one, he may take another wife. Or worse, die of heartbreak." Ekon stepped back. "This is wrong. You're my mother now." "I never gave birth to you," she said, her voice trembling. "But you can give me life. You can help me save your father." Ekon was frozen. The ground beneath his feet felt like water. He wanted to run, to scream, to vanish into the night. But he saw the desperation in her eyes. It was not lust. It was fear, shame, and sorrow. I need time," he whispered. Nabira nodded, stepping away. "I won't force you. But remember, what is at stake?" She turned and walked back toward the compound, her figure dissolving into the night. Ekon stood beneath the baobab, his hands trembling, and above him, the fireflies began to glow red. 2 moons passed after that fateful walk beneath the baobab tree. In those silent weeks, Nabira became strangely calm, her footsteps softer, her voice more peaceful, her eyes often lost in thought. Meanwhile, Ekon carried a storm in his heart. He avoided her, spending most of his days with the hunters in the Mai bush or helping elders mend the broken canoe by the riverbank. But no matter how far he ran, her words followed him like a shadow. "You are his blood. You can help me save him." One night, after returning late from the river, Ekon found Nabira waiting by his hut. She carried a clay pot of warm porridge and a folded wrapper. Her voice was soft, kind. "You've been avoiding me, my son." Ekon hesitated. I've been busy." "You've also been thinking," she said gently, setting the pot down. "I see it in your eyes." She looked at him long, the moonlight painting silver across her cheekbones. "I'll only say this once more," she whispered. "What we do will not be for pleasure. It will be for purpose, for your father, for this home." And that night, beneath the silent eyes of the stars, the line between right and wrong was crossed. The next morning, a breeze swept across the village, and the crows gathered in odd silence above the compound. Weeks turned to months. Nabira's belly began to grow. When she first vomited at dawn, women from the village came running with laughter and songs. They clapped, sang praises to the gods, and brought white cloths to bless the womb. Baba Dondo, now aging quickly and walking with a cane, wept with joy. "My gods have answered," he shouted. "At last, my name will not be forgotten." Ikon watched the celebrations from a distance, his smile forced and fading. Each drumbeat felt like a slap, each cheer like a whisper of guilt. Then the day came. Nabira gave birth beneath the sacred palm tree, where midwives had helped generations of women before her. The labor was long, strange, and filled with screams that chilled the air. When the child came into the world, the room went still. The baby girl was beautiful, yes, but her eyes were glowing amber, like fire trapped in glass. And on her back, shaped clearly like a snake winding down her spine, was a dark birthmark that pulsed when she cried. One midwife dropped the baby. Another began to chant prayers, clutching her beads. "This child is marked," one whispered. Word spread like wildfire. Even the goats refused to walk near Nabira's hut. Chickens laid rotten eggs. The village children cried in their sleep, but Baba Dondo, blind to all warnings, held his grandchild in trembling arms and smiled. "She is my star," he said. "The gods have made her special." Only Ikon saw the baby for what she truly was, a living memory of a terrible mistake. He noticed something else. The baby only stopped crying when he held her. Not Nabira, not Baba Dondo, only him. Each night she stared at him, wide-eyed and unblinking. Sometimes he swore her lips twitched into a smile when no one was looking. And in the silence of the night, when wind rustled the dry leaves, Ikon would hear it, a hiss, a whisper, a voice that didn't belong to a child. "You are my father," it once said. And Ikon froze, knowing then, the curse had been born. The baby girl was named Amira, which meant Princess of Light. But the villagers soon began to whisper another name, Nyanja, which meant Child of the Deep, for her eyes shimmered like the bottom of a dark well. Nabira ignored them. She walked proudly through the village with the baby strapped to her back, pretending not to hear the gossip or notice how women pulled their children away when she passed. Baba Dondo remained blind to it all. His joy, though genuine, made him deaf to truth. But Tambwe began to change. First, the rains delayed. The skies remained stubbornly blue for weeks, even as prayers and songs rose from the temple. Then, the cassava plants turned yellow before they could grow tall. The river, once fat and gurgling, became thin as a rope. The village healer, Mama Gando, came forward in a public gathering. "This is not natural," she said firmly, leaning on her carved staff. "A sin has touched the land. A curse has rooted itself among us," the elders murmured. Eyes turned to strangers. Suspicion bloomed like weeds. And yet Nabira remained untouched, hidden behind her husband's honor and the newborn child. But Ikon could not sleep. Every night he heard the baby's voice, not crying, but speaking. Words she should not know. Thoughts she could not think. "You look like me," she once said. "I see your shame. She will never love you, not truly." One evening, Ikon went to the stream to fetch water, only to find that the stream had dried to cracked mud. Frogs lay dead on the edges. A single heron stood still as stone, staring at him with one glassy eye. Suddenly, the village bell rang. Die rang only when someone died. He dropped his pot and ran. At the center of the village, people had gathered. A young boy had collapsed in the market, his skin pale and his breath shallow. His mother screamed, "He just touched the shadow of that child." Whispers turned into fear. "The baby is cursed. It is her, the child with serpent eyes." That night, The elders called a crisis meeting in Baba Dondo's courtyard. "The land is sick," said Elder Ogoma. "The children are falling ill. Our goats are giving stillbirths. Our women bleed without reason. This began with the birth of the serpent child." Baba Dondo stood slowly, his old hands shaking. "My Amira is no curse," he said, his voice heavy. "She is my gift from the gods." Elder Ogoma did not back down. "Then let the spirits speak." The next morning, a cleansing ritual was held beneath the sacred Iroko tree. The entire village came, dressed in white, carrying kola nuts and bitter leaves. The drums were silent. Only the chant of the spirit callers echoed. Mama Gondo threw bones into the fire. They cracked loudly, like thunder. She bent down, eyes closed, listening, to the wind. Suddenly she opened her eyes and spoke. "There is blood mixed with blood, a child born of forbidden roots. The soil has been poisoned with secrets. The river cannot flow while the truth is buried. A man lives in guilt. A woman walks with pride. A child born of that union has opened the door to the ancestors' wrath." Gasps rose from the crowd. Everyone looked around, and for the first time, Ikon felt every eye fall on him. Not with judgment, but with knowing. He turned to Nabira. Her face was pale, but she said nothing. She simply held Amira tighter and walked back toward their hut, each step heavy with the weight of what she knew. That night, the village dogs refused to bark, and at midnight, the ground trembled, just once. But everyone felt it. The land was speaking. The wind changed in Tambwe. It no longer sang through the trees. It whispered truths that had been buried, truths the earth itself wanted to spit out. And in the middle of it all was Ikon, a young man carrying the weight of a child who should never have been born. Ikon had stopped sleeping. Each night, he stared at the ceiling of his small hut, hands over his ears, but the baby's voice still found him. The soft giggles, the strange words, "You were chosen. She lied to both of you. Your father will know," echoed in the corners of his soul. One dawn, unable to take it any longer, Ikon walked deep into the forest. He passed the hunting paths. He passed the place where the old warriors once trained. And deeper still, into the land no one spoke of, the forest of the ancestors. There, the trees were older than memory. The air was thick with silence, and even birds did not sing. At the base of a giant moss-covered tree sat a crooked shrine. Burnt offerings, feathers, and smooth river stones were scattered all around. In the center was an old calabash filled with ash and blood. The smell was sharp. From the shadows stepped a hunched figure. Her skin was like bark, and her eyes were clouded like milk. "You seek the truth," she croaked. Ikon nodded slowly. "Yes, Mama. I am drowning in my secrets." The old woman pointed to a hollow beneath the roots of the tree. "There lies the mirror of truth. Look only once. The spirits will show you what your heart already knows." Ikon reached in and pulled out a small mirror carved from black stone. It was cold, even in his sweating palms. He stared into it, and the world spun. He saw himself, standing under the moonlight with Nabira. He saw her trembling hands. He saw the act, the moment he broke the line between mother and son. He saw the baby being born, glowing eyes and serpent mark. But the worst part was what came next. He saw his own mother, Baba Dondo's first wife. She stood in a field of mist, weeping. Her eyes bled tears, and she cried, "You let her take what was mine. My son, my husband, my name." Then the vision faded. Ikon dropped the mirror. His chest heaved. The earth beneath him seemed to moan. "Mama," he whispered, "forgive me." The old woman took the mirror from the dirt and placed it back in the shrine. "You must return," she said. The village suffers because you carry a lie. The ancestors demand truth. That evening, Ekon stood before the fire in the center of the compound. The villagers gathered again, silent and watching. Baba Dondo sat beside Nabira, who bounced. Amira gently in her arms, Ekon cleared his throat, his heart pounding. Then he stepped forward. "I must speak," he said, his voice trembling. "There is a curse on this village. It was not born of chance. It was born of my actions." Gasps rippled through the crowd. He turned to Baba Dondo. "Father, that child is mine, not by mistake, but by sin. I was weak. I gave in. I let lies dress as love." Baba Dondo froze. His cane fell to the ground. Nabira did not speak. She only bowed her head, her arms holding the child tighter. Silence hung in the air like smoke. And then, Amira laughed. A soft, unsettling laugh that didn't belong to a baby. The fire in the middle of the circle flickered blue, and Elder Ogoma stood slowly and spoke the words no one dared say. "The curse has a name now, and truth has begun to burn." The wind that blew through Tambwe that night was not a natural wind. It carried the voices of the ancestors, soft murmurs and rattling echoes that moved through doors and cracks like ghosts looking for truth. Ekon's confession had broken the silence. The villagers no longer whispered in corners. Now they spoke loudly. Some cursed Nabira's name, others looked at Ekon with pity, but none looked at Amira without fear. Even the dogs barked whenever they saw the child. Chickens refused to lay eggs near the compound, and babies cried whenever Nabira passed by. But the worst pain sat in the chest of Baba Dondo. He had not spoken since the truth came out. He sat beneath the great mango tree every day, staring into space, his cane untouched beside him. People came to greet him, but he only nodded. Sometimes he wept silently, wiping his tears with the sleeve of his robe. He had lost a son, a wife, and a legacy, all in one evening. The village elders met under the sacred tree, this time not for prayer, but for judgment. Elder Ogoma stood, with a face carved from stone. "The spirits have been mocked," he said. "The sacred order has been broken. A woman who should have been a mother became something else. A son forgot the path of honor, and from that, a child was born who carries the shadow of that sin." Mama Gondo, the village healer, added, "If this curse is not cleansed, Tambwe will dry up like a gourd left in the sun." A decision was made. A spiritual cleansing would take place, and all parties involved must answer before the ancestors. That night, the entire village gathered by the river. A large fire was lit, and drums beat slowly. White chalk marked the faces of the elders. Calabashes filled with river water and herbs were passed around. Nabira was brought forward, her face hidden beneath a shawl. Ekon followed, carrying Amira in his arms. The baby no longer cried. She smiled, wide and strange. Elder Ogoma raised his staff. "Do you, Nabira, confess your sin?" Nabira trembled. Her voice was a whisper. "I confess. I let my heart grow dark." "Do you, Ekon, accept the shame you have brought upon your father and this village?" Ekon stepped forward. "Yes, I will carry this guilt all my life." Suddenly, a loud crack split the air. The fire flared high, blue and white, then settled. Again. Mama Gando stepped forward, her eyes glazed over. "The spirits accept their confession, but not without sacrifice." Everyone fell silent. She pointed to the child. "The girl must not remain here. Her soul is not yet fully bound to this world. She carries whispers from the other side. She is not evil, but she was born of evil." Nabira clutched her chest. "You want to kill my baby?" "No, Mama," Gondo said softly. "The forest will take her. If she is meant to return, she will. If not, she will belong to the earth." Before Nabira could protest, Amira vanished, right from Ekon's arms. One moment, she was there. The next, gone. Without a sound, without a trace. A warm breeze swept through the gathering, and the fire burned green for a moment, then returned to orange. Nabira fell to her knees and screamed, but the village remained quiet. That night, rain fell for the first time in many moons. It poured as if the sky itself was weeping, and washing the land clean. Tambwe slept under wet skies, unsure if it had lost a child or a curse. The rain fell for 3 days and 3 nights. It was not gentle. It poured like a sky trying to cleanse not just the land, but the hearts of all who had sinned beneath it. The dry ground drank deeply. The brown river turned silver again. Mango trees stretched their limbs, and the air began to smell of healing. Tambwe came back to life. But inside Nabira's hut, silence sat like a shadow. Her arms were empty, her eyes red and hollow. Since the night Amira vanished, she had not eaten. She sat by the window, staring into the forest, waiting for a miracle or judgment. Ikon, too, had changed. He walked with his head low, helping villagers quietly. He fed the goats, fixed the market roof, and fetched water for the elders without being asked. No one told him what to do. Guilt had become his master. Baba Dondo remained the most broken of them all. Though he still woke early, he no longer sang his morning prayers. His voice, once full of wisdom, now trembled like a cracked drum. One day, the blind priest Elder Muta called the family to the sacred hill. He stood with his back straight, a staff in one hand and a bundle of white cloth in the other. "The spirits have spoken," Muta said. "A final path lies before you, one of redemption or ruin." He turned to Nabira. "You must go to the forest of returning, alone. There you will find the child, if the spirits have spared her." Nabira blinked. "Alive?" Muta nodded. "Alive, or taken fully by the spirit realm." Without hesitation, Nabira wrapped herself in a blue shawl and set off before sunset. The villagers watched her go, their hearts heavy with uncertainty. For 2 days and nights, she walked through thick roots and singing winds. The forest whispered things she didn't want to hear. Wife of betrayal, mother of the cursed, bearer of silence. On the 3rd morning, she reached the tree of memory, a tall tree with white leaves, said to grow where the spirit world touches the earth, and there, beneath its roots, lay Amira. The child was not crying. She was playing with pebbles, humming softly. Her eyes were still golden, but softer now. She looked up at Nabira and smiled. "You came," she said, in a voice far older than her age. Nabira fell to her knees, tears pouring down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought I was saving a marriage, but I destroyed a home. I lied to my husband. I used a child. I broke the sacred lines." Amira stood and walked toward her. Then a voice, deep ancient, echoed through the air. "Will you carry the burden, not just of your sin, but of truth? Will you return, not as mother or wife, but as a woman who tells the tale so others do not fall?" Nabira bowed her head. "Yes." The forest went still. The wind calmed. And when she opened her eyes, the child was no longer there. But in her hands lay a small calabash, sealed with red string. Inside it, she would later find a single tear, a baby's bracelet, and a note written in the language of spirits. "Let truth be your child now. Raise it well." Nabira returned to Tambwe. She told the truth to every girl, every wife, every mother, how one decision can poison generations. And in time, she became not feared, but respected. Ikon never married, but became a wise counselor for the young. And Baba Dondo forgave, slowly. The village healed. And when the rains came each season, the people whispered, "Tambwe was once cursed, not by spirits, but by silence. Now it lives in truth, and the truth is what saves.